July 10th, 2024, inside South Carolina's J. Reuben Long Detention Center, the air was thick with tension. 4 inmates sat in silence, eyes darting, nerves on edge. Then, without warning, Collins Bates slammed his tray into Antonio Hampton. In that instant, chaos erupted, leaving one person paralyzed and changing the lives of everyone involved forever. Here are 5 of the most brutal prison fights caught on camera.
New footage from the February 11th prison riot in Monterrey, Mexico shows the moment 2 rival gang factions started fighting. Surveillance cameras captured a large number of prisoners in the courtyard of the prison at 10:48 p.m.
February 11th, 2016, Monterrey, Mexico. The night air around Topo Chico prison is split by sirens and smoke. Inside, chaos reigns as 2 rival factions of the Zetas cartel wage a brutal battle for control. 49 inmates would not survive the night. This violent clash began shortly before midnight, triggered by a power struggle between 2 longtime enemies. One group was led by Juan Pedro Zaldivar Farias, known as Z27, while the other followed Jorge Ivan Hernandez Cantu, a figure connected to the Gulf Cartel. The fighting quickly escalated into a savage melee with inmates armed with hammers, clubs, and makeshift blades. Governor Jaime Rodriguez described the scene as a bloodbath. At least 60 hammers, 86 knives, and 120 shivs were recovered after the carnage. Many victims showed signs of being hacked, beaten, or burned, evidence of the savagery that unfolded in those darkened hallways. Despite the violence, no inmates managed to escape during the chaos. Outside the prison walls, desperate families waited for news of their loved ones. Some tried to force open the gates, throwing sticks and rocks in frustration, as riot police formed a tight cordon around the facility. The air was thick with tension as relatives demanded answers about the fate of those inside. The Topo Chico prison was notorious for its overcrowded conditions and rampant corruption. Designed for 3,635 inmates, it housed over 4,600, many awaiting trial for minor offenses, now trapped alongside hardened killers. The Zetas and Gulf cartels effectively ran the prison, extorting protection money from inmates' families and controlling the flow of contraband. Inside, violence was an everyday threat. Guards were too few and poorly paid, often turning a blind eye to the criminal operations behind bars. The night of February 11th, their lack of control allowed the rival factions to unleash unprecedented violence. The riot lasted about 40 minutes, during which time inmates set fire to a storage area. Flames and smoke are visible from outside the prison walls. When order was finally restored, the toll was staggering. 49 dead, all male inmates, and 12 more injured, 5 critically. Governor Rodriguez didn't mince words about the state of Mexico's prisons.
All this corruption inside the prison creates the conditions we have today.
He admitted that prisoners effectively ruled Topo Chico and that significant reforms were needed to prevent future tragedies. The aftermath was grim. Troops and heavily armed police flooded the prison grounds as authorities scrambled to identify the victims. Some bodies were so badly burned that identification would take days. Families waited anxiously, hoping their loved ones had survived. For many, the tragedy was all too familiar. Just 4 years earlier, 44 inmates had died in a riot at Apodaca prison nearby. A stark reminder of the ongoing crisis in Mexico's penitentiary system. The Topo Chico massacre was the deadliest prison riot in years, underscoring the urgent need for reform. Governor Rodriguez called for private investment in prison management, suggesting a move toward U.S.-style privatization. He also criticized judicial reforms that allowed dangerous inmates to appeal transfers, creating conflicts in the prisons, like the one that sparked this deadly confrontation. As the smoke cleared, one thing was painfully clear: Mexico's prisons were broken. The Topo Chico riot was not just a tragedy, but a symptom of a system in desperate need of overhaul. The violence that erupted that night was a stark warning, one that could not be ignored. But if you think this was brutal, wait until you see what happened next.
Incarcerated people running across the housing unit to see the fight.
October 19th, 2021, another fight night on Rikers Island.
Cheering, throwing their arms up in the air as if it's some kind of Vegas boxing match.
October 2021, Rikers Island, a notorious box of violence and chaos. Surveillance cameras captured a scene that looked more like a Vegas underground fight club than a correctional facility. Inmates crowded around a cell, cheering loudly, their arms raised as if placing bets on fighters locked inside. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a regular event known on the inside as Fight Night, orchestrated by gang leaders and, shockingly, facilitated by some corrections officers. Attorney Eric Burse described the scene vividly.
You see a corrections officer, just one female officer on the floor. It's clear she sees what's going on.
Burse recalled.
At one point, she kind of walks over to the leader and says,
"Hey, it's a little too obvious. Calm it down."
This wasn't just a breakdown in security. It was a complete collapse of institutional control. One man at the center of this brutality is Dominic Nelson. From his bed in the Bellevue Hospital prison ward, Nelson recounted his harrowing story.
They would give us compensation like cigarettes or drugs or food and stuff to do to other inmates.
Nelson said,
The last incident that I had, I knocked a guy out and I peed on him, and the corrections officer paid me to do it.
His voice, calm but heavy, revealed the dark reality of Rikers' Fight Night economy. Nelson's participation in these fights wasn't voluntary. He claims he was forced to fight by a corrections officer from June until December of the previous year. His reward? Small favors and contraband. But when he tried to opt out, the consequences were immediate and brutal.
After I told an officer in December that I would no longer participate in Fight Night, I was attacked from behind several days later and stabbed in the eye, Nelson recounted.
Now still hospitalized, he carries the physical and psychological scars of Rikers' underground fight circuit. Attorney Ilya Novofostovsky, representing Nelson, shed light on the systemic nature of this violence.
The talking heads and the people in charge got shuffled around, but the reality of the situation hasn't changed.
Novofostovsky stated. The institutional response? New York City's Department of Corrections claims they are fully committed to creating a safer and more humane environment in our jails. Yet, these words ring hollow against the backdrop of ongoing violence. The Correction Officers Benevolent Association painted a different picture, emphasizing the impossible environment they operate in daily.
We are operating in an impossible environment and deserve more credit for the lives we protect and save every day,
their statement read. But for the inmates caught in the cycle of fight nights, these words offer little comfort. The consequences of this unchecked violence are staggering. At least 16 inmate deaths have been documented at Rikers Island in the last year alone, sparking numerous protests and calls for reform. But as one case after another emerges, it becomes clear that Rikers' problems run far deeper than a few rogue officers or isolated incidents. The current administration claims progress. Mayor Eric Adams expressed full confidence in new jail commissioner Louis Molina, stating,
He's going to staff up so we can turn around Rikers Island in a very humane way, and I have the utmost trust in his ability to do so.
But for those living through the daily reality of Rikers, change feels distant. One Manhattan judge recognized the danger. After viewing the surveillance footage and hearing testimony, the judge determined it wasn't safe for Burse's client to remain on Rikers. Instead, the man now fights his charges from home, a rare reprieve from the violence that engulfs so many others. The Fight Night phenomenon at Rikers Island isn't just about individual acts of violence. It's a symptom of a broken system, where authority figures either participate in or turn a blind eye to brutality. It's a place where survival often means engaging in violence, or becoming its victim. As we pull back from the bloody spectacle of Rikers Fight Nights, the true cost becomes clear. It's measured not just in broken bodies, but in broken trust and a broken system. And while some may escape its grasp, for many Rikers Island remains a battleground, one where the fights are rarely fair and the consequences are always brutal. But if you think Rikers Fight Nights were the peak of prison violence, wait until you see what happens in Cook County Jail.
one ambulance after the other. In total, 5 pulled out of the Cook County Jail Friday after inmates were wheeled out on stretchers, all stabbed here in this living unit.
January 8th, 2024. Chicago's infamous Cook County Jail erupts in chaos as a brutal prison brawl leaves 5 inmates stabbed and several others injured. Weapons made from inhalers were recovered after the fight, showing just how creative inmates can get when it comes to making dangerous contraband. This wasn't just any jailhouse scuffle. The attack was organized, coordinated, and executed with military-like precision inside one of America's largest jails. The Cook County Jail, known for its violent history, houses thousands of inmates from Chicago's most dangerous gangs. Tensions between rival factions had been building for weeks. Guards noticed increased hostility and minor altercations, but nothing prepared them for what was to come. That morning, the jail seemed unusually tense. Inmates from 2 rival gangs were placed in adjacent recreation areas. Surveillance footage later showed subtle hand signals, coordinating the attack that would follow. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Inmates armed with makeshift knives, crafted from inhalers and other everyday items, launched a coordinated assault on their rivals. 5 men were brutally stabbed in the opening moments. The attack was swift, calculated, and designed to send a message. Guards responded quickly, but the damage was already done. Blood stained the recreation area floor as medics rushed in to treat the wounded. The attackers had concealed their weapons so well that even thorough searches missed them, a testament to inmate ingenuity. The aftermath was immediate and severe. The entire facility went on lockdown as guards searched every cell and common area for more weapons. They found dozens of homemade shanks, many crafted from surprising materials like toothbrushes, broken plastic utensils, and even pieces of metal pried from air vents. Jail officials quickly separated the rival factions, moving key instigators to solitary confinement. The stabbing victims were treated for serious but non-life-threatening injuries. But the violence didn't end there. News of the attack spread quickly through the criminal underworld. Gang leaders on the outside issued threats of retaliation. The jail administration had to act fast to prevent an all-out gang war within the facility. They implemented stricter security measures, increased surveillance, and conducted surprise cell searches around the clock. Guards received additional training on gang identification and contraband detection. Inhalers, once considered harmless medical devices, were now a major security risk. The investigation revealed that the attack had been planned for weeks. Inmates communicated through coded messages, hand signals, and even written notes passed during mealtimes. They exploited routine movements and security gaps to position themselves for the attack. This incident forced Chicago officials to rethink jail security. They implemented new protocols for monitoring gang activity and screening for contraband. Medical items like inhalers now require special handling and inspection. But despite these measures, violence in Cook County Jail remains a constant threat. Gang rivalries run deep, and inmates continue to find new ways to create weapons from everyday objects. The January 8th brawl serves as a stark reminder of how quickly jailhouse violence can explode, even in facilities with modern security measures. It shows the ongoing battle between inmates and authorities in the never-ending quest for control. If you think this was brutal, wait until you see what happened in the next prison brawl, where homemade weapons turned a routine cell check into a bloodbath.
This video, provided by an inmate advocate and posted publicly by an inmate on Facebook, shows 2 inmates beating another with a padlock in the Tucson prison complex. No staff visible for minutes.
May 14, Arizona State Prison Complex, Tucson. A brutal attack caught on camera would expose deep cracks in the prison system's foundation. No guards in sight. 2 inmates, armed with padlocks strung from makeshift tethers, stalked their target across the prison yard. What happened next would ignite calls for urgent reform and raise disturbing questions about safety inside Arizona's prisons. The raw footage lasts nearly 3 minutes. It begins with the victim already bloodied, desperately trying to escape as his attackers relentlessly pursue him. Each swing of the improvised weapons, the padlocks, could have been fatal. Instead, the violence unfolds without any staff intervention visible on the video. Only after the attack spills into the open recreation area does help finally arrive. Donna Ham, director of Middle Ground Prison Reform, described the scene as disturbing and illegal.
You're really dancing with the case law, which protects an inmate's right to be safe,
she explained.
Inmates are all there because they've committed felonies, but they aren't there with a death sentence.
Normally, such footage would never reach the outside world, but a contraband cell phone captured everything, turning what should have been a hidden incident into undeniable evidence. The attack highlighted a growing trend of violence inside Arizona prisons that officials can no longer ignore. The Arizona Department of Corrections, Rehabilitation and Reentry responded with a carefully worded statement. They called the incident isolated and insisted no inmates received serious injuries. All involved were immediately moved to higher custody housing. But the video told a different story, one that raised serious concerns about staff shortages and security gaps. This wasn't the first or only violent incident at the Tucson complex. Just weeks earlier, 3 inmates had been murdered in a separate attack. The pattern of violence was becoming impossible to ignore. Prison reform advocates pointed to chronic understaffing as a root cause. With too few officers covering too many areas, even basic security protocols were breaking down. Carlos Garcia, executive director of the Arizona Correctional Peace Officers Association, put it bluntly.
If you have 1 officer in 3 buildings, no officer is going to respond to an inmate assault on the yard. Because there is nobody on the yard. They're running, trying to keep up with this workload, not checking cells, not patting them down.
The attack exposed how easily inmates could turn everyday items into deadly weapons. Padlocks, meant to secure personal property, became tools for violence. The video showed how quickly these improvised weapons could be deployed, and how long attackers could operate with impunity when staff presence was lacking. Despite official claims that the incident was isolated, additional videos began to surface. Inmates were not only recording assaults, they were posting them on social media platforms. TikTok-style videos and Facebook posts documented a wave of violence that prison officials could no longer contain or deny. ADCRR Director Ryan Thornell acknowledged the problem, stating he was proud of the quick response by the staff during the incident. But prison reform advocates like Ham saw things differently.
The department continues to insist that staff shortages are not impacting operational security. I think a video like this is a clear demonstration that that is absolutely false.
The attack sparked an internal criminal investigation, but it also triggered broader discussions about prison security statewide. Governor Hobbs' office responded with a firm statement.
Violence in our prisons is unacceptable and won't be tolerated.
The governor's budget proposal included pay raises for correctional officers, an attempt to address the critical staffing shortages that had allowed such incidents to occur. The ADCRR launched its own investigation, detailing how its incident command system protocols were activated and how all dangerous items were confiscated. But the incident had already exposed deep systemic flaws. For many, the most disturbing aspect wasn't the violence itself. It was the apparent normalization of such attacks. Prison reform advocates warned that this video represented just a tiny sliver of what goes on 24/7. The department was in crisis mode, and the footage made that clear to everyone watching. The aftermath included immediate changes to security protocols. Inmates involved in the attack were moved to higher custody housing. Contraband cell phones became a top priority for confiscation. Staff schedules were reviewed and adjusted to address coverage gaps. But the fundamental issue remained. Chronic understaffing and inadequate supervision were creating dangerous conditions for both inmates and staff. As the investigation continued, ADCRR promised greater transparency, as allowable by law. They emphasized their commitment to safety through increased staff support and better retention. But for many, the damage was already done. The video had exposed a system dangerously close to collapse. This was more than just a single incident, it was a symptom of a much larger problem. As prison violence continued to escalate, the padlock attack became a symbol of everything broken within Arizona's correctional system. It was a wake-up call that could no longer be ignored, and yet, what happened next would push the system even closer to the breaking point.
The 15th Circuit Solicitor's Office has shared this video with us from July 10th, capturing the moments that have forever changed Chance Benson's life.
July 10th, 2024, J. Reuben Long Detention Center, Horry County, South Carolina. 4 inmates, Collins Bates, Chance Benson, Jose Rodriguez, and Antonio Hampton, sit in the crowded dining hall, tension simmering just beneath the surface. Suddenly, Bates swings his tray at Hampton, shattering the uneasy peace and setting in motion a chain of events that would leave one man paralyzed and forever change the lives of everyone involved. The fight erupts with brutal efficiency. Inmates scramble, fists fly, and chaos engulfs the room. Rodriguez grabs Benson in a headlock, dragging him toward the left side of the screen. Detention officers rush in, desperate to regain control. One officer deploys a taser, striking Rodriguez as he holds Benson. The electrical current courses through both men, and in an instant, Benson collapses, his head striking the hard concrete floor. Witnesses would later say it happened in a matter of seconds. But the consequences would last a lifetime. Benson, just 19 years old, is left paralyzed from the chest down. His attorney, David Rigney, describes the devastating aftermath.
Right now, he's struggling. He's working to get his strength back and try to be able to move. He still has difficulty in doing very simple things. He can't feed himself right now.
The immediate aftermath is a flurry of activity. Detention officers intervene, calling for medical attention. But the damage is done. The first riot of the year at J. Reuben Long Detention Center has claimed its victim. 15th Circuit Solicitor Jimmy Richardson tries to put the incident in perspective.
It's not like it's a crowded church. It's a crowded jail.
He explains.
Those guys act differently than they might in church.
But that explanation offers little comfort to Benson or his family. The charges pile up quickly. Everyone but Rodriguez now faces an additional count of participating in a riot, while Rodriguez faces a count of third-degree assault. JRLDC Director Marcus Rhodes calls it an isolated incident. But for the staff and inmates at J. Reuben Long, the scars run deep. The facility tightens security, implements new protocols, and tries to move forward. But the memory of that violent day lingers, a stark reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control behind bars. Benson's recovery is slow and painful. He fights to regain even the smallest measure of independence. The incident sparks debate about the use of tasers in correctional facilities and whether more could have been done to prevent such a tragic outcome. But in the end, it's another stark reminder of the dangers that lurk within the walls of America's prisons. As the dust settles, one thing becomes clear. In the volatile world of prison life, violence can erupt in an instant, leaving devastation in its wake. And sometimes, the price is far greater than anyone could have imagined.